Hi, and welcome to this episode of Brainy Moms, brought to you today by Learning RX Brain Training Centers. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Moore, here with my beautiful co-host, Teri Miller, coming to you today from Colorado Springs, Colorado. We are excited to welcome our guest today, Dr. Brent Goldman. Dr. Goldman is a former public school educator who has always been passionate about teaching and learning. However, as a young teacher, he began to believe that the traditional model of education was antiquated and decided there had to be a better way to help students learn. So 25 years ago, Dr. Goldman left public education to co-launch and lead pioneering private schools, including XCEED Preparatory Academy.
So glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to speak with you today.
Good. Before we launch into all the interesting information you have for us, I want you to just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your personal story, and how you came to where you are now with XCEED Prep Academy.
Oh, great. Well, I had a 30-year career as an educator. As Amy mentioned, I started as a public school teacher. My first job was an interesting job. It was fifth grade dropout prevention, which just the title alone, that we're already labeling 10-year-olds as potential dropouts was a little problematic, but I had a lot of fun and connected with the kids. And then I was a high school social studies teacher for 4 years, and then got together with my family, and we had an opportunity to open a K-12 private school in South Florida and Western Florida called the Sagemont School. And we owned and operated it for 17 years, grew it to about 820 kids, sent kids to great colleges and universities, had a fantastic fine arts program, college prep program, sports program. But along the way, we've done some pretty cool non-traditional stuff as well. We started an online high school in 2002 with the University of Miami. And if you think back to 2002, I didn't get my first email address, I think, till 1994. So in 2002, the online schooling world was brand new. Now it's ubiquitous. Online learning is everywhere: elementary school, middle school, high school, college. My son got his driver's permit in the state of Florida online. So it's everywhere. But in 2002, people looked at you like you had an eye in the middle of your head when you told them that you can learn school online in your house in your PJs. So we were the first private SACS accredited online school. So that was kind of pioneering.
It's a big accomplishment.
And then we sold that school to the Washington Post in 2007, which was owned by they owned Kaplan at the time. So it was kind of a crazy time, but we were became serial educational entrepreneurs. We were co-founders of an online high school that we started in 2009 that is now, I think we've graduated 13,000 students, called Smart Horizons, which is an online school geared towards adult high school dropouts. We partner with McDonald's, we partner with Amazon, we partner with public libraries across the United States to help students who dropped out of school generally because of a life problem. A parent passed away, they got pregnant, and maybe they had 3 years of high school but they didn't finish. So that we started that in 2009, and then in 2016 we conceptualized XCEED, which we've today we have 7 schools across the United States, mostly in the state of Florida. We have 1 school in Georgia, 1 school in Iowa, and then a virtual school. And XCEED basically is a combination of my 30 years of experiences. It's a hybrid blended learning environment where we deliver our curriculum online, but in a live brick and mortar setting. with live subject certified teachers. So because we deliver the curriculum online, the students have access to their school 24/7, 365. They can do their work Saturday morning, Sunday night, at 1 in the morning on Wednesday. We're in a traditional school, the doors are locked, and you don't have access to that. You don't have access to your teachers when the final bell rings. But then they come into school with live subject certified teachers, so they have one-on-one contact with their teachers, and obviously the socialization that the strictly online school doesn't have, where they can be around friends. So it's kind of, you have your cake and eat it too. And that's our model. And so we launched 2017 with 2 schools in South Florida. We now have 3 schools in South Florida and 1 in Daytona Beach, Florida. This was pre-pandemic. Hybrid now is much more. We work hybrid. We move to different states because we can. It doesn't really matter where we live anymore with our jobs if we don't have to come into the office. So adults have become. When we started XCEED, adults really did not get it. Kids got it because kids are growing up in an on-demand world. The adults, we go back to how we were educated and how we envisioned our schools to look like and what our teachers are supposed to do, and our hard copy textbooks. But kids today are growing up, with Netflix, Amazon Prime, Uber, and smartphones. So it's a much different world for them. And this hybrid way of learning really fits how they're growing up in today's world. So it's been a very interesting 30-year journey from public school, starting a traditional K-12 private school to online schools for all ages, and now kind of a blended learning hybrid model.
So I want to ask you, you firmly believe that the hybrid model is the future of education. And so I want you you alluded a little bit to it a minute ago, because times have changed and our kids are different now. Is this a logistics issue or is this psychological? What is it about the hybrid model that is going to sustain it? Why is it the future?
Well, I think a number of things. I think the main reason the traditional school exists as is a childcare issue, more so than anything else.
Wow.
Parents need to work and they need to be able to house their kids, to have their kids supervised while they're working, so now the world is changing, and more people are working from home, and more people have flexibility with their workplace. So I think that, we're a private school, but I think that this model can work also in the charter school world or the public school world as well. And I think that kids today are different than 15, 20 years ago. They have interests that school gets in the way of. It could be they're a competitive athlete. It could be that they want to work. It could be that they have an internship opportunity, or they're a singer, or they're in a traveling Broadway troupe, or their parents want to travel but they can't because of the rigidity of the traditional school. So I think the pandemic kind of accelerated all this, but I think that parents saw how kids learn for the first 3 months specifically during the pandemic, but even the course of the next year. And I think they the remote learning obviously got bad press, but I think for a lot of kids, it was the first time in their lives they were successful academically, and their parents saw that. Their parents, why is that? Well, maybe it was because in a traditional classroom they're embarrassed to raise their hand. Maybe in a traditional classroom, they're being bullied. Maybe they have attentional issues and they can't focus for 7 hours, but they can for 3 or 4. So I think, parents discover that, hey, my kid is being successful for the first time. What are different ways, are there different programs out there, whether it's a strict online school or a hybrid model that, my kid can finally learn and be successful for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have said this multiple times since the pandemic started, but I think one of the reasons why online learning got such bad press early on is because the schools that didn't have a learning management system already in place, schools that didn't have that infrastructure in place to support online learning, really had to drop back and punt, right? My sister teaches math in a rural area of West Virginia. They did not have any online infrastructure in place. And so she was screwing a whiteboard into her dining room wall to teach high school math online, right?
Yeah.
And so schools like that, they did struggle, right? Teachers didn't have the resources they need. They didn't have that system in place. Whereas schools that already had a learning management system, that already had that option and were already running and were well-oiled machines, they were thriving.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody just pivoted to the online option in those school systems, right?
Well, think back to March 2020. I mean, schools basically shut down on a Friday and reopen on a Monday remote.
Yeah.
So, there was no teacher training. There was a lack of infrastructure. There was a lot of kids that didn't have high-speed internet access at home, so you were seeing kids pulling up to the McDonald's parking lots to try to get hooked up to the classes. There were kids that, that were, not turning their cameras on, so there was no accountability if they were even there. I mean, there were all kinds of issues, but ultimately it was just, at the end of the day, who could have envisioned and prepared for a pandemic that over a weekend you have to totally transform how you teach.
Right.
And I think unfortunately, even after that summer, when we still didn't have vaccines, and there was still obviously a lot of unknowns. There still wasn't, when the kids kind of quasi went back to school, it still wasn't good.
Yeah.
I think that kind of led to a lot of dissatisfaction that people had.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you also talk about class size. And so you say that you believe the answer to student engagement is smaller. Some people believe the answer is smaller class sizes, but you believe the answer is actually smaller schools. Tell us more about that.
I've always been a believer in small schools. The hokey, be a name, not a number. I've always believed that if you get to know your kids, that the kid is going to be more successful in school. So in large schools, I remember when I went to a large public middle school, and my dad, and I was in 7th or 8th grade, and my dad went to the back to school night or the open house and introduced himself to the principal and said, do you know Brent Goldman? And the principal hesitated, and finally said, well, if he doesn't get into trouble, I have no idea who he is, because I only know the kids that get into trouble. So, those types, I just believe that, there is power in when you walk in the door. Hi, Amy, how was your weekend? How are your parents doing? How's your vacation? How's your job at Publix? Those connections are very, very important. And the small school size, everybody can say that they, the personalized instruction with all the big buzzwords, but how can you do that? And our public high school down here has 6,000 students. It's a great school, but there's no way they can individualize. I mean, it's just basic math. It can't happen. And for a lot of kids, they do great there. And, you know, my concern isn't for those kids. It's those kids that are getting C's that don't get into trouble. They don't bother anybody. So the teacher's probably not going to call you and say, you know, your daughter or your son is causing problems in my class. And they're surely not going to call to say that, hey, she's a C student and you know, now, you know, she has a potential to be an A student, but she's not bothering anybody. So she's going to kind of continue just kind of moving along and be that C student. And I strongly believe in smaller environments that you don't get lost in the shuffle. And it's really all ends of that traditional bell curve. Those kids in the middle have always concerned me. But the kids that struggle on the one end of the bell curve in larger environments, larger schools, I mean, let's be real. How much opportunity do those kids have for true remediation? You know, so even if they were highly motivated kids and they wanted to get one-on-one help with their teacher, okay, maybe I can catch them at lunch, maybe I can catch them before school, but they're probably at a faculty meeting or they're sponsoring a club or coaching a sport. So the chances of me getting extra help are probably slim and none. And then, you know, the real bright kids, you know, they're slowed down too, because the teacher has to kind of keep everybody on the same pace. So the small school size to me comes back to you want your kid to be a name and not a number. And it's as hokey as it sounds, I just can't see how that happens in very large environments. And I want my teachers to be proactive. I want my teachers to call you. You know, if your kid's an A student and gets a C, and that's not their normal deal. Yeah, but the employee handbook says I only have to call you if they got a D or an F. But what if they got a C? Well, I don't have time to call you. I have 200 kids. You know, so it's not that I don't care. I don't have the time. And, you know, in smaller schools, you know, I think those things are more, you know, the proactive measures that good teachers take. It's more apt to occur than in large environments. And I could be proven wrong on that. I'm just giving you, and I know there's studies that, you know, on the, you know, the small schools and student success. But even, you know, small class size is great. It sounds great, but sometimes it's too small. I mean, you have a class of 7, 8 kids. There's really no opportunity for, you know, really positive conversations going back and different points of view. And, you know, what if, you know, it's all boys and one girl? I mean, there's just, you know, to me, you know, what is exactly a good class size number? So I've always been a believer in small schools. And, you know, so when we designed XCEED, it was, you know, based on some other micro school, and there's this micro school genre of schools. And, you know, so there's a number, you know, the one that I was most familiar with is called Fusion Academies, and they have multiple locations across the United States, but these are private schools designed for around 100 kids. So when we were conceptualizing our schools, that was a model that we, you know, that we were looking at because they're kind of mastering this micro school world.
So where do you see the parents' role in education?
I think the parents have to be a partner with the school. I mean, if they aren't, it's probably not going to work unless you have a really like I said, a special, highly motivated kid that doesn't need much support on their own. Obviously, in more traditional settings, there's a lot of ways for parents to get involved, which I believe are positive. From at younger ages, volunteering in classrooms, reading to kids, getting involved in PTAs, advisory groups with, the principals or heads of school, where they can help set direction. Those are great ways, but I think that there's a lot of, you mentioned learning management systems. There's a lot more technology now where we can really know what's going on with our kids' grades. So I have two teenagers, and I have two great kids, but I've always told them, listen, I believe the adult more than you. Always, I'm going to side on the side of the teacher. So back in our day, parents asked you, how are you doing in social studies class? Good. What does that mean? I'm doing fine. Do you have an A? I think so, maybe. So now, with Canvas or Blackboard or Power School, there's all kinds of systems that schools use where you can get real time, see real time how your kids are doing. And, on a lot of these, back ends, you can see how much time they're spending in each class. You can see how much time they spend interacting with their teachers. Teachers can log communications. So, I can go in and see that, my child, I think, wasn't telling me the truth on exactly, how well they're doing. And, so I think there's accountability there as well. I think my fear with parents as a lifelong educators, there has to be that line also. Education is the one field where everybody thinks they know everything because they went to school. And, I think that, the lack of respect for teachers and educators also kind of was magnified over the past 2 years as well. So I always, I like for parents to, kind of know their place also, and trust the professionals to do right by your child. But, I think that, obviously there's, good schools always find ways to involve parents. And, I think, when kids see that you're involved and you care about your child's education, I think that obviously also leads to academic success.
Right.
So in a hybrid or online environment, what is your recommendation to parents for how they can connect with the teachers, but not micromanage the process? Like from a teacher's perspective, what are their expectations of parents' involvement and communication?
Yeah, because it seems like
to make their job easier.
Such a fine line, like what I'm hearing.
So what's my advice? And again, I'm a parent as well, is do not helicopter. I think with all of these opportunities to get involved, again, that's why I kind of mentioned that line. Your kid also kind of has to figure it out. And I think that, right now there's just way too much, without being political, with all this stuff going on, with book banning and all this stuff, trust the school is going to do a good job, but I think in our environment, a lot of our kids, and I'll use this term because it can be many, many different kids, are square pegs in a round hole. They could be Harvard-bound kids, but they haven't been successful in their current environment, and that's why they're looking for change. So a lot of our families are like, oh my God, for the first time in my kid's life, they're being successful. And, I think that, so it's because our schools are 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. That's a tiny footprint. Most schools are, 100, 200,000 square feet. How we involve our parents is different than we would in more of a traditional setting. And obviously the pandemic, where you don't want, visitors on campus as much, to try to not have, all the different germs and stuff. So we don't do as much as we used to with having parents on campus. But if we have big events, whether it's curriculum fairs or honor society inductions, obviously we want, parents to be involved. But I think, as far as if you can, check in on your kids' progress online, and if you're seeing some slippage or your kids are struggling, obviously to reach out. And, I think also in our environment, we have a head of school that's really kind of the head coach of our schools. It's a much different, again, with 75 to 100 kids, it's a much different role for every one of our folks. So that person's kind of the first liaison with parents. But I think the biggest piece of advice is be involved, but don't helicopter. You don't have to, your kids are going to have to figure it out. And, with my 17-year-old son who's going to college next year, I don't go on his canvas. I haven't, he happens to be a good student, but, he's a senior. I can see some slippage. I can see some, he's got 3 weeks left of school, but I'm like, you can't not, your college can take away your admission, he's going to be 18 in a couple of weeks. He's going to have to figure that one out. And then I think also, the real micro stuff, like, what curriculum do you use for teaching English, or what math curriculum do you use? I mean, that's not our expertise as parents. That's the school's expertise. And the reality is that does it make a difference if you're using Pearson or Houghton Mifflin or whatever? The curriculums are all designed to state standards, all of them. So ultimately, I don't think you need to be reading through the social studies book to make sure that everything is cool, or that your friend's kids using Pearson. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's I try to use my parenting, how I deal with my kids' school, as far as how I would give advice to parents.
Okay. Talk to us about dual enrollment. There are more and more high schools across the country, even into middle schools, trying to prepare kids for college classes by offering dual enrollment, which means they are in high school getting that high school credit with a class that they are also getting college credit for. So talk to us a little bit about that and why you think that's important.
Well, so colleges, as a parent, my son just went through the college application process. So colleges look for really 3 different things when they're deciding whether to admit you. The first is that you're challenging yourself to the best of your ability, taking the most rigorous college prep curriculum that you can handle. Then your resume, what makes me different than you, and then finally your test scores, and then those are more and more schools are going test optional now anyways, which kind of leads back to the first component of, are you challenging yourself to the best of your ability? So generally kids do that through AP, through advanced placement classes. The other way is through dual enrollment classes, just like you said, typically juniors and seniors that would go, most of those programs would go to a local community college and take a college level class. Personally, I'm not a big believer in AP, even though we offer them at our schools and have offered them in every schools that I've taught at for a couple of reasons. One is it's very teacher directed. There's not much room. The teacher has to get through. You're teaching to a test. So it's very intense. You're teaching to a test at the end of the year. There's not much flexibility to add or delete different things based on what's going on in the world, because the kids, you're accountable for how your kids do on that test.
Right.
Okay. So, so then the kids take the test. It's graded 1 through 5. 3 and above is passing, but there's no guarantee the college is going to take those credits. Mm-hmm. So even if 3 is a passing, most colleges aren't going to take that 3. It'll be really for 4s and 5s, and some colleges don't take them at all. Okay, so the dual enrollment piece, you don't have to take a test to pass the course. Generally, you have to get a C or above to get the college credit. And colleges are more apt to accept those college credits from other colleges than they are from AP. And I think that it also gives the kids really an opportunity, especially the highly motivated kids, to see what a college class is like. And, there are a lot more online options now for dual enrollment, but, the kids that are going the more traditional dual enrollment where they're stepping into a community college, you're going there with college kids, and you have a real professor in front of the room, and you can, it's great preparation, for when you're, gonna matriculate in a 4-year school. Yeah. So the dual enrollment piece, I personally believe is a better way to demonstrate that you're challenging yourself and taking a rigorous curriculum than AP, for the reasons that I said before. And it's not for everybody. It's a college class, so you have to, I think schools have to be, and parents have to be realistic and selective on who they recommend, takes these courses.
Right. Yeah, it's not going to be a good fit for every kid. That's for sure.
It's not a good fit for every kid.
Yeah.
We have experience with both in my family. And so my middle child did AP courses in high school. I don't know, calculus, physics, some of those. And I have never seen that level of stress in a child than I did when he was facing those exams. And he got lucky, or he worked hard. So he got 5s and he got college credit for or advanced placement credit for those 5s. How meaningful was that year's worth of work? I don't know. Right. Whereas my youngest child has done dual enrollment since his freshman year of high school. And really that sense of satisfaction that he got from those courses without the same level of stress that I saw. And every child is different, like we're saying. But Teri and I are both big proponents of dual enrollment.
Yeah. And Amy, it's our experience. Amy, it was the same with us, that Autumn and Eliza both took AP classes, and it's exactly what you're saying. Those courses were so stressful. They required so much extra work. I mean, so much extra time, as opposed to then my son Canyon, who's doing college courses. Yeah. Dual enrollment all through high school. And he's getting the actual college credit, and it's way less stressful. He's not having to put in all this extra work, these extra hours.
And we're talking about one class. Most of these kids are taking 3 or 4 or even 5 AP classes. So you can even, you can quadruple the amount of stress. And then, you look at the odds of getting into Harvard. I'm putting Harvard in quotes, but it could be any tier 1 college. if 70,000 kids are applying for 1,400 slots, so the odds of you getting into these schools is slim, if not slim and none. And you're doing homework till 1 a.m, and then you had to get up at 6.
Right.
And I think that ties into my hybrid, being a big believer of the hybrid model is our kids don't have to get up, at 6 a.m. to catch the bus.
Right.
Our kids create their own schedules. So, if you are a morning person like I am, I would, come in to our school every day at 7:30 and try to be out before lunch. But there's a lot of kids, obviously sleep research with teenagers, but so many teenagers are sleep deprived. I mean, my son, I drive to school every day. I'm thinking, oh, this is a great opportunity for us to bond. And I'd say 90% of the time he's sleeping the whole way to school.
Yeah.
So it's not a great place to bond, but I see how stressed out and tired he is.
Mhm.
And the hybrid model, again, our kids could come in at 10 and get some extra sleep. So,
Yeah.
pushing that model again, but how that ties into kids that really, are going after the big prize of a tier 1 college acceptance and taking a bunch of AP classes.
Right.
Well, but I don't want to discount the importance of honoring those circadian rhythms in teenage kids, right? I don't understand why public high schools ignore it.
Right.
It
is
drives
strange.
me nuts.
Because the research is. Go ahead.
The buses. It's the buses,
simple.
Right?
It's very buses and extracurricular activities. It's real simple. It's mostly buses. So they, they're picking kids up and they're dropping kids off. Sometimes it has to do with field space for sports teams,
right.
After school, and you have to get out at a certain time. So that means you have to start earlier. In a lot of districts, the buses drop the high school kids first and then come back and get the middle school kids next. Maybe that should be flipped, but they can't flip it because the high school kids have the sports after school, so they can't start practice at 4:30 when daylight savings time. It's dark in a lot of places at 4:30, in the winter. So that's the number one reason. And again, that goes back to kind of the fundamental question. My fundamental belief is that the whole system is broken.
Right.
And that's obviously a part of it. It makes no sense. Teenagers need sleep, yet they're doing homework until midnight and they're getting up at 5:30 a.m. to catch the bus at 6.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why they don't do well in their first few classes because they're half asleep.
Right.
So do you think that creating private schools or charter options like you have done, do you think that that's a great workaround? Or are you trying to create a model that could possibly globally work and replace the system?
Well, I think ultimately the biggest problem is childcare. So is it going to replace the entire system? I doubt. But could it provide a real nice option for lots of families? Absolutely. Again, going back to, the early 2000s when online schools started taking off. I live in the state of Florida. Florida Virtual School is the 68th public school district in the state of Florida with millions of kids taking classes, either full-time or part-time. That's a tremendous disruptor. That was a tremendous disruptor to the existing system and provided more choices to parents. I believe our hybrid blended model can be a similar disruptor. So, we're in the private school world. So we're trying, when we created XCEED, it was to disrupt the private school world. That does not mean that our model couldn't be used in other places, because the reality is it's not that hard. We're in small footprints with a small number of staff, with online teachers. What we're doing is not that hard to do. It's just a matter of forward thinkers, and I think that the charter school world has that freedom to think more outside the box. Obviously, that hence the whole process. But why not give parents and families another choice, just like with the advent of public online schools, charter online schools that are available in many, many states across this country. I think the more options we can give families, the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Absolutely.
the choices, having those options, so good.
Yeah. So we need to take a break and let Teri read a word from our sponsor. And when we come back, let's talk specifically about XCEED, where you are, how listeners can find you, and why they should want to.
Are you concerned about your child's reading or spelling performance? Are you worried your child's reading curriculum isn't thorough enough? Well, most learning struggles aren't the results of poor curriculum or instruction. They're typically caused by having cognitive skills that need to be strengthened. Skills like auditory processing, memory, and processing speed. Learning RX one-on-one brain training programs are designed to target and strengthen the skills that we rely on for reading, spelling, writing, and learning. Learning RX can help you identify which skills may be keeping your child from performing their best. In fact, they've worked with more than 100,000 children and adults who wanted to think and perform better. They'd like to help get your child on the path to a brighter and more confident future. Give Learning RX a call at 866-BRAIN-01 or visit learningrx.com. That's learningrx.com.
And we're back talking to Dr. Brent Goldman about XCEED Preparatory Academy and the hybrid learning model. So Dr. Goldman, talk to us specifically about XCEED, where you are, how listeners can find you, and what's so special about you.
Okay, great. For your listeners and viewers that live in South Florida, we have 3 schools in Miami-Dade and Broward County. We also have a strictly virtual option for families anywhere that can enroll in our school, called XCEED Prep Virtual. And then we have schools that are embedded in existing sports academies, one in Daytona Beach, Florida, one in Atlanta, Georgia, and one in Des Moines, Iowa. So our standalone schools, what's special about them is really how different they are. The schools look like a combo of a high-tech startup space and a Starbucks. It doesn't look like anywhere where we went to school. And our families create their own schedules based on their children's academic needs or special talents or interests. And that's what makes us unique and special. Our website is xceedprep.org. And it's a great way to learn about us, our locations, our programs, etc. I'm also personally active on LinkedIn, so you can search me out on LinkedIn. We're very active in the education world, specifically, our space with hybrid learning and online learning.
Okay.
And then tell us what makes your virtual school different than the other virtual school options.
again, comes down for us, it's a virtual school. The success of it comes to, I believe, on how accessible your teachers are. So again, we are the student teacher ratio at our virtual school is much smaller than other private virtual schools, and specifically public or charter virtual schools, where teachers can have hundreds of students and generally have 24 to 48 hours to get back to you to answer any type of question. We want our teachers to get back as quickly as possible to the kids. We also have a partnership with an online tutoring company where our kids can get off-hour support until midnight in every subject area, where they can Zoom in with a certified teacher in algebra, English, science, etc. If their teachers are off, it's 9 o'clock at night, and I'm working through algebra. I can't understand this question. They can go on to our off-hour support tutors and get extra help.
Wow.
We have comprehensive college counseling starting in high school for our virtual students. In 11th and 12th grade, it's obviously much more hands-on. 9th and 10th grade, it's really helping them plan out their academic schedules, build their resumes, provide trend information to the parents, learn about the differences between the SAT and the ACT, etc. 11th and 12th grade is more your application, SAT, ACT prep, visiting colleges, etc. And the final piece, which you brought up in, when we were talking about dual enrollment, is we partner with a group called Outlier, and it was created by the founders of Masterclass. And they have, I think now, 10 or 12 college courses that they deliver online, and the credits are granted through the University of Pittsburgh. So that is a way for our virtual students to dual enroll without having to go to their local community college and take it live, because obviously our virtual students like learning online. So, right. Those are ways that make us unique and different.
Okay. So I know that you personalize the curriculum for each student. Is there a part-time option, or is it a full-time enrollment?
Full-time only. And we have a summer school where kids can take part-time, 1 or 2 credits, but we're a full-time school.
Okay.
All right.
Full-time, full service.
Full-time, full service. Exactly.
Is there anything that you haven't gotten to tell our listeners that you'd still like to say?
I think the biggest thing is, I think there's a myth about private schools about affordability. A lot of private schools offer financial aid. A lot of states offer very robust voucher programs, like the state of Florida, where I'm at, which helps the affordability piece of private schools. But even if the private option doesn't work financially for your families, there's many choices available now. And I encourage parents to research what is available in your area, in your district, that might better meet the needs of your individual child than the local home school, the local home public school that might not meet your individual child's needs. It might be perfect, but it might not.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you so much, Dr. Brent Goldman, for enlightening our listeners and us to this amazing hybrid private school option. I've enjoyed this conversation with you very much.
Thank you very
much. If you would like information about XCEED, the website is XCEEDprep.org. So XCEEDprep.org. And you can find Dr. Goldman on social media at XCEED Prep. Again, XCEED Prep. We will put those links and his social media handle in the show notes. You also said that you're on LinkedIn, very active.
Yes.
What is your
Search me out on LinkedIn.
Under
I don't
Dr.
know
Brent
what
Goldman.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So thanks so much for listening today. If you liked our show, we would love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. If you would rather watch us, we are on YouTube, and you can find us on every social media platform at the Brainy Moms. So look, until next time, we know that you're busy moms and we're busy moms. So we're out.
See ya.